After bishop c5, bishop e3, bishop d7, there is one detail after knight d2 move. Queen h4 can be played. This is a move that's suggested by famous Grandmaster Lajos Portis a couple of decades ago, but 25 years ago. And they said, oh, this move almost refutes the variation. Nonsense, because we simply castle here. That's the correct way to play. We have to castle here. Knight takes f2. Combination doesn't work because on bishop takes f2, they have bishop takes d4, then it will work. But we simply take with a rook, and after bishop takes d4, white wins with knight f3 move. So what we have to do here, we just castle, white castles, which simply can take on e4, queen takes e4, and go rook e1. This will get you to the same type of position that we analyzed before, that we will analyze soon, actually. And on queen g6, knight b3. White has very comfortable position. And of course, taking on e5 after knight takes c6 will give white a better position. Maybe winning position in this case. After queen d6, white can simply win a pawn, taking on c5 and giving knight e7 check, followed by queen takes d5. It's simply an extra pawn. So queen h4 does not really change anything, any evaluations, and does not create any problems for white. Now let's go to the main move, bishop. It's not main move, it's like more frequently played. It's the easiest move to make, protect everything. White takes on c6, pawn takes, and castle. This is the key position of whole opening. And this position, we have to play correctly. Or if we don't, we will get exactly opposite what we're trying to get. There is a basic rule here you have to know. White has to achieve one of two things. White has to achieve complete positional blockade of weak squares d4 and c5, or get kingside attack. If you fail to do one of those two things, that means you played badly the opening. And if you play this opening badly, you will get real bad position. So in this position, we castled, and black's move. Black has several tries. Bishop e7, bishop c5, and pawn c5. Let's analyze them in random order. Actually, bishop c5 is the main move. Let's analyze this bishop c5 move in the end. So c5, correct move is knight b3, although some computers prefer knight e2. I like knight b3, and it's based on long games and analysis. Now c4 is not good because queen takes d5, attacking the knight on e4. Bishop b5, and again bishop c6 is not such a great idea because knight a5 will be played by white, attacking c6 bishop. And if they go queen d7, and after f3, the knight on e4 has no square to retreat. knight b3, bishop b5, rook e1. It looks like black has very good center, and they should be doing okay, but they are not. They have problems finishing development. And let me show you why. Bishop e7 will create immediate problems for black. After f3, actually f3 is one continuation, and knight a3 is the other one. So, but f3 is the best move. Knight g5, knight c3, attacking bishop on b5 and pawn on d5. Also, we can play on this move, on the next move. Bishop takes g5, followed by knight takes c5. There is absolutely no compensation for a lost pawn for black. So c5 is not a great move. So that leaves us with bishop e7 and bishop c5. So let's look at them. Bishop e7, we go f3. Knight g5 or knight c5, it's practically the same, because on both moves we play f4, and after knight e4 we go f5. Now, what happens very frequently, my opponents play knight e6. The way you deal with knight e6, you go f5 right away. Don't let him pin your knight. So after knight takes d4, queen takes d4, castle, and knight c3, position is absolutely nightmare for black. f6 is coming, and black's bishops are very passive, and black's king is in a great danger. Very bad position. So the correct move is knight e4. Then we go f5, and on a castling, the best move is knight c3. And here, I want to explain you something. This is very important to know. It's going to help you develop as a chess player. Okay, we much rather exchange knights this way than this way. So, in other words, we much rather have a double pawns on c2 and c3 than the pawn on b2. And why? We need to do that to successfully continue attacking on the king side. If white goes c5, black goes c5, we may go knight b3, c4, knight d4, and on c5, knight e2. A question, the fair question here is, why didn't we go right away knight e2? No, we go knight b3. Because if we go knight e2 right away, this knight is very strong piece and should participate in attack. And we don't want black to play bishop b5 and exchange this knight. So the move I like here is knight b3 with possibility of bishop e3. Now, for example, if black goes rook e8, we're going to go bishop e3. Actually, then pawn is hanging on d5. Suppose black goes bishop c6. f6 is very good, but f6 is winning, of course, here. But we have a chance to play bishop e3, force c4, and come back with a knight on a permanent square. But after c4, we go knight d4, and on c5, we go knight e2. Now bishop b5 move doesn't make any sense because diagonal is blocked, and white is going to go knight g3. d4 doesn't do anything. Knight g3 and f6. The attack is absolutely murderous, and position is totally lost for black. So that's why it's not a good idea to go bishop e7. Some people still play, but they play not because they have, believe me, if you have someone play you bishop e7, it's not because they prepared something, it's because they know nothing. They don't know why it's bad, so that's why they will play, is out of ignorance. So bishop c5 is the move. We go f3, knight g5, f4, and again black has two moves, knight e4 or knight e6. Knight e6 is a bad move because we don't go. That's the case when we don't play bishop e3, but we play pawn c3 because we want to go f5, and in case black takes, we want to have an extra tempo to go f5. Now, the reason why I don't like bishop e3, because black is going to get very good position after bishop takes, c5, and on bishop e3, d4, and on bishop d2, bishop c6. Now, next move, even on f5, maybe queen d5, and black is doing really well. So we don't want it. We don't want to do that. So that's why in this position, we must go c3. But of course, main idea is knight e4, bishop e3, castles, and we go knight d2, intending to get play for the main idea of this opening, which is the dark square blockade. What you want to do in this position, you want to blockade this. You see, black's pawns in its center, they don't move at all. White is going to put the minor piece on c5, on queen e7, queen c3. The minor piece you put on c5 must be a knight and not the bishop. Now, I have to explain this too. This position, in this position, knight on c5 is a lot better for white to have than bishop on c5. However, bishop c5 is a bad move because after f takes c, you see the bishop is pinned. White's queen and knight, they're dedicated to protecting bishop on c5. And it's two pieces out of play for us. If black will go queen g5 or do something like that. However, if we play knight c5, we have a chance to play, for example, after rook e8, we have a chance to play b4 and completely free our queen from protecting the knight. You see, the knight on b3 blocks the b2 pawn, and we want to do that. And just to show you one interesting trap my opponent fell into, fe, and here queen takes e5, loses the game because, not because white is going to take on d7, because then bishop on e3 hangs. This white has instant winning move that wins a queen, is a rook f8 check. And you see black should resign now. If king takes, knight takes d7 fork, and if rook takes, then simply queen takes queen. And it's totally winning. So strategically, once you have the blockade, now this, we can continue talking on about this blockade, why it's so important, but the purpose of this lecture is to show you the basic ideas and give you the overview. And if you are really interested in it, then you should get a lot longer version DVD or request additional lecture on chess.com, and this, if we have enough interest, we may make it happen. So in this position also, instead of knight takes d2, black may go f5. But this position is also not very good for black, for the same exact reason. White is going to achieve the same blockade, queen d2. And now on bishop b6, we could go knight b3, but we have even better move, b4, followed by knight b3 after that, to get total control on c5 and d4 squares. And if black attempts c5, then they will get really disaster position. After b takes c, bishop takes knight b3, because now they are forced to take the bishop, because threatening queen takes d5 check and bishop hangs. And after bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, now white is gonna put knight on c5 and queen on d4, and this is gonna be absolute disastrous positional crush, positional defeat. So we're gonna go e6 next move. Threat is e6, queen, for example, on c6, queen d4. Just look at this position. It's like all white. Black has no play and no hope in this position. And again, if some people question, why is this so? Why is this so bad for black? Well, then you should get a little more knowledge of a positional play, or ask someone who can explain it to you why this is absolutely lost position. I prefer this position to an extra piece. So that's how bad it is. So this is my quick overview, and I really recommend to play Scotch Gambit, because it's the more you analyze, the more you see all different position arise, and it's very interesting tactical wise and positional play wise. You learn a lot, and plus you're gonna get you're gonna get a new friend in a form of the opening. So that's the opening you're gonna be using, and I really wish you good luck, and I hope you really adapt this opening. Good luck, and thank you for listening.